Okay, the session is now recording. Welcome everybody to today's webinar around internal mobility. The slides are going to run at about 25 minutes or so. There'll be time for questions afterwards. A couple of housekeeping things. You can see that there's a chat function here in Teams. If you have questions, please do ask them there. And also, we are recording today's session. So if you want a copy of the recording, email sales@PharmiWeb.com at the end of this, and we'll make sure it makes its way over to you. Vince, thank you very much. Over to you.
Lovely, thanks, Simon. Well, welcome everybody. This is number 4 of our webinar series so far this year. We based a lot of our webinars on data, so there are data sheets and information sheets that will be available to you afterwards. We'll normally send those after the presentation with a copy of these slides, so don't worry too much about writing lots of things down because you will get a copy. So this particular webinar was really come about by a number of clients that said that they'd like to know what everybody else is doing and what we consider to be best practice. So what I've done is I've picked up a whole range of different data points. There's a lot more data behind this as well. And obviously you get a copy of the research of that. But also looking at best practice as well as case studies. So I've got some of that information for you here today as well. So hopefully it'll give you some sort of insight, and then we can have a chat at the end about, you know, where we go from there. Okay, so first of all, I've been running PharmiWeb now for 26 years. The business has grown and developed in that period of time, and I've worked across a number of different areas. I'm going to talk about one of these a little bit later, around looking at supporting organisation internally, and then how that moves forward when you're looking at fast track development of particular candidates. PharmiWeb itself gets a lot of data. We get a lot of people coming into the site, and with the longevity that we've got, we work very closely with Google and LinkedIn as other sources where we get information from. We also have a number of partners where we get information from and support. So some of the interesting ones at a mere level are TopPro, the governing body for regulatory, which we took over earlier this year. So we take over all their recruitment for them. The Institute of Clinical Research, the clinical contract research organisation. The Ethical Medicines Institute Group, which is about 160 second, third and fourth tier pharma companies. I do help and work and support APSCO, the PM Society. We recently took over Network Pharma from a MedCom's point of view, and we're now doing all the recruitment for them. And then in Asia Pac, we work with MEXEC and the Migration Agency to really help them bring people over to Australia to keep moving that environment. And I work closely with the European Students Association and with a number of recruitment partners, including Discover International and Turner Regulatory. All of those organizations basically help us with content, detail, facts, figures, data, where we can then make decisions on where we spend our marketing spend and where we go as an organization. So very important partners as far as PharmiWeb is concerned. So let's have a little chat about where we're going, really. So COVID has changed everything. I think the world's a completely different place. Most people will either agree or disagree with that, and some people are trying to take things back to how they were. I can tell you, well, from my personal point of view, especially in our industry, we're never going to go back to where we were. I think hybrid work is here to stay. People's views have changed about work-life balance, and I think you have to change with them. And internal mobility is one of the things that you can actually do to support that. The key thing is the candidate is king. We know that when you're trying to bring more people into the organisation, even your own employees, the things that they want now are more money, they want a work-life balance, they want to work with really good colleagues, they want personalised development just for them, which is our next webinar next month. Culture of the company has become really important. We've seen a 6.5% growth in candidates that are moving or changing jobs because the culture of the company doesn't actually suit them. They want to go and work somewhere where it does. Morale is affected by everything that's going on in the industry. So companies with good morale actually hold on to people better as well. But two of the final ones, the biggest ones, are, you know, candidates and internal employees want to know from the get-go, from a performance point of view, are they doing the right things? What do they need to do to achieve their goals? And they want recognition for that. They almost want a roadmap from the day that they start, or starting right now, as to where they're going in the future, what training they need, or what they need to achieve to actually get to those points. So the market's very different. People really know what they want, and they need to be considered as individuals and not just employees. You can't have blanket cover for everybody. So when we're looking at some of the data and research, the first thing is employees want more than just a good salary and paid time off, etc. What they're looking for are the more demanding roles. They want opportunities to grow. They want opportunities to upskill and learn. Most of the people that are actually in the industry at the moment consider that they probably lost 2.5 years of their career because of COVID, and they want to get it back. They want training, they want support, they want to grow, they want to fast track, etc., etc. So having a discussion with your employees is really important to actually help them to decide on the direction that they need to go. And I suppose in the long term, are you the company for them, and are they the person for you? So internal mobility is quite important to keep really good people within the organization as long as possible. So some key stats. So when we're looking at LinkedIn in the USA, I brought this up because this is really interesting. 94% of workers say that they would stay at a company longer if it invested in their careers. What we're seeing in the US at the moment is a real sea change in considering individuals as individuals and actually offer them a lot more opportunities than ever before. This is causing lots of problems with existing management where they have to start thinking differently. They have to be redeployed, retrained. So all these things make a difference to the organisation. And 63% of employers are interested in being considered for new career opportunities within their company, but only if those opportunities exist. So if they don't find them, guess what? They can go somewhere else very, very easily. We're starting to see a lot more of this coming over to EMEA now. It's always been quite competitive anyway, but everyone's really looking at where they're going in the future. Now, Gartner did a really good report. We've got all of these reports, what we're going to send you links to that we're going to be talking about today. But Gartner have really picked up on one of the other things from an internal mobility point of view is individuals, employees need to feel like they've got a value within the organization. They need to have deeper connections with the management people. They need to feel cared for, feel valued, supported. They need personal growth, etc., etc. They really, really do want to be part of the company. So the Gartner report, if you've not read it, is actually really interesting. It gives you a really good insight as to what people are looking for. And also gives you some ideas as to what you can offer employees over and above, training and support to keep them with you for longer. So when we're looking at internal mobility, I think there's some key factors here. If you've got good internal mobility and you excel at it, you're very good at it, you can retain those employees for 2 times longer. Now, the average time that employees stay with a company at the moment is around 2.9 years. You can keep them for 5.4 years. If you've got internal mobility, you can offer them other roles within the organization. And that's not to say that they've got to have a lateral career path. They might have a horizontal career path. They might be good at doing other things. One of the things that our system's starting to do with AI is start to look at candidates that have got a slightly different personality bias. So people that are more scientific based or more commercial based will be offered roles that are slightly outside of the norm that they'd go for, that they could actually do. And again, 33% of employees say they aren't being encouraged to pursue internal roles. Why is that? This isn't a surprise. It's been going on for years. Some of the larger pharma companies, big CROs, etc., have been looking at internal mobility for years and years and years. But I think it's come to a point now where you must have that, or candidates will move. And sadly, 50% of workers are actively looking for a new job and have not looked at their own company for a new position. And that's primarily because they can't see where they could go. So I think a management challenge at the moment is to actually consider where good people within your organization could actually go if they wanted to develop their career, move in a different direction, or do something else. And then finally, I'm not going to bore you too much with data, but these are quite good to go back to your management teams with. Just 6% of companies believe they're excelling at internal mobility. That means 94% believe they're not. So what can be done about that? And is your organisation one of those? Is that something that you need to think about? 76% of organisations see internal mobility as critical, and yet only 40% are ready for it. Again, this isn't just suddenly popped up and everyone's got to do something about it. A lot of companies are doing things about it, and I'm sure everyone on this call is doing that. But what else could you be doing? What other ideas and what's best practice? So we're going to give you some hints and tips at the end of this presentation, which might help. Some key factors, really. The biggest one, again, I was looking at the US market, which seems to be changing a lot faster than any other market at the moment. 40% of Americans have changed their roles or jobs or managers since 2020. Attrition rates are currently running at between 15 and 18%. By April, May next year, we're expecting those to start to get close to 20%. So retaining staff by offering them internal mobility is an absolute must. And again, some real key ones before we sort of show you some options on how you can address this. 70% of employees are compelled to leave for the sake of career advancement. They're not being given the opportunity to train, to develop, to personalize their development or move on within the organization. And again, 60% of employees, this learning and job-related skills or advancing on job-related skills are the most important things in their career right now. They feel like they've been held back, they want to move on. And again, one of the things that I picked up recently in a couple of meetings, the PCMG group in Poland a couple of weeks ago, for example, was learning and development professionals agree that it's much less expensive to reskill current employees and to hire a new one. Average cost per hire for a MIR currently is running at around about £10,000 to £12,000. That includes obviously internal fees as well. So it's quite expensive to bring someone on. It doesn't cost that much to retrain someone to actually do a new role or offer them something different. So the other thing we've seen a lot of, and I'm sure some of the organisations that are with us today have got some of these things in place, employee stabilisation teams. These are HR members or individuals within the company that are now being used to look at stabilising the workforce. So what that means is pre-joining, when someone's accepted a role with you as an organisation, in the 4 weeks or so before they can actually join, what support can you give them? What information can you give them? Do you have weekly contact with them and you start to do introductions even before they've started with team members, so they start to feel like they're part of the company? The reason companies are doing this is because there's so much choice in the market. We're starting to see a lot of dropout where people accept a role, suddenly decide it's not for them because they've been offered something better and don't join. We'll get them entranced straight away with you as an organization, get them thinking about you as their employer, rather than leaving them stale for 4 weeks where they get approached by people probably 20, 30, 40, 50 times a day for other roles. Within the first month, most candidates now want to see a development roadmap. This is a roadmap of what they need to achieve, what you expect of them, what training they're going to get to achieve that, and where they go over that first month. What support are they going to be given? Do they get a regular review on a weekly basis, monthly basis? When is that? They're evaluated, and what training are they given to actually support any gaps that they might have in their experience so they can actually move on with their career. Within the first year, it's regular reviews, at least monthly, and I do say at least monthly. Do they fit with the team? Do they fit with the work that they're actually doing? If they don't, talk to them about it, think about their performance, think about training. If it doesn't work, change it, give them something else that's better. And then again, on the career development side of things, what's available to them within the organization? When are they going to get their appraisals? And where are they actually going to go within the business? These employee stabilization teams work really well for larger organizations, but they can work just as well for small organizations. In smaller organizations, sometimes it's actually more important because losing that key individual that's really making a difference is a big problem. So there's an example of sort of fast tracking development. A very old friend of mine, Matt Charge, is the founder of Possible. And basically what he's doing is training marketing consultants now. But he started his career with Sharon Palau, and he stayed there for 5 years doing a job as a primary care sales rep, then secondary care sales, specialising. Then he moved on to the learning development lead for oncology. After that period, he moved into Roche Pharmaceuticals, started as brand manager, and then moved on to brand lead in oncology. Again, stayed there for 5 years because he could, and then moved to Novartis and actually moved on from there. So this is a classic example of very bright individuals that absolutely know their stuff. They know where they want to go in their career and are given the opportunities to do so. So they can actually fast track their own personal development. One of the things I'd urge all of you to start thinking about is Do you have these individuals within your organisation? What can you offer them to keep them with you? Because guess what? They'll be gone in 2.9 years if you don't. People need to move on. They need to see that they're being successful. They want to be recognised for that and given opportunities within the organisation to actually move forward. Matt's a classic example of this, and obviously he's now set up his own business. The other thing that we've been looking at is the internal mobility process. So what I've put together is a graphic here of how that actually works. Now, this is based around conversations with 2 or 3 of the large CROs, and also looking at big pharmas who are also starting to deploy this, as well as a biotech. So the key at the beginning is a proactive staff review process. Some of these companies are doing it on a weekly basis, asking people how they're getting on. They're not just talking about work, they're also talking about work-life balance, how things at home, is coming into the office working, hybrid working for you, do you need any equipment, etc., etc. That leads on to a 12 or 20-month progression review, where the management are consulted as to where they're going to go next. While this is going on, personalised development programs are actually tailored to that individual employee. What do they want? Do they need guidance as to where they're going to go in their career? What opportunities are they going to get? Is it going to be a local opportunity? Is it going to be a global opportunity? Is it going to be internal, or is it going to be a client development workforce working on fast track projects? All of these things are considered on a regular basis. It's not an official review, but it's a review on a monthly basis as a minimum. Then there's things like redeployment onto other projects, fast track promotion, additional tailored training because of promotion or where they're actually going. Management training is one of the biggest one and fastest growing. Their personal preferences should be considered. There are a lot of companies out there that still say, right, you're going to go down this route, you're going to do this training, you're going to end up here. Well, that might not be what that individual wants. And if there's someone very good, you need to offer them something that's more personalized. I think I've already mentioned we will be doing a webinar on personalization in about a month's time. Now, from there, of course, you need to think about the best fit for the employee and the company. Where's the best role for them? Because they might not be where they started. They don't have to stay on a linear career project. What they can do is they can go into billing roles, non-billing roles, they can go local or global management roles, but it's got to be the best fit for both of you, because if it's not the best fit, guess what? That employee will leave. You spent a lot of time and effort bringing them onto that type role, and you're going to lose them because you can't offer them what they want rather than what you want to give them. It needs to be a fit for both sides of the business. So we've recently done an article on 9 best practice tips for organizations to consider when they're looking at internal mobility. I'm going to look at all of these and just give you the sort of 2 highlights on each one as we go through. So thinking long term, developing your internal task force, what does that actually mean? Consider all the different types of internal mobility, and consider internal mobility at every stage of the employee journey. What I mean by that, more importantly, is there are a lot of employees that have been with you for quite some time, I'm sure. They should be included in this as well as anybody joining you. So it should actually reflect all of the employees that work for you as an organisation, even if they've been there for a long time. Don't assume they're happy just because they're not making waves. Make the most of the technology that's now available. Communicate your policies clearly. It's another big complaint I get from candidates that have had issues with organisations as they move forward. Offer autonomy over the learning and development, which is what we were just talking about. Stay competitive, salary-wise as well as organisational-wise, and measure that success to see if it's actually working. If you're going to put a lot of time into this, make sure it's doing what you want it to do and have some results to feed back to the senior management team. So let's look at some of these things. First of all, thinking long term. Internal mobility is here to stay. It's not a short-term fix. Think about it long term. Where's it going to go? What's it going to bring to the company, and agree at a management level? Embed it into the company culture, and then you can use that to aid future talent acquisition and attraction. Basically, what we're trying to do here is say that, it doesn't take very long to get out into the market for employees that have moved on, talking to other organisations to say, yeah, actually, this is a really good company. They've got great opportunities internally that we can go for, so you don't have to consider moving on within 2-3 years. When you're looking at your internal task force, think about building this internal recruitment team, get them to actually support and help people. It doesn't matter how big or small that team is, depending on the amount of staff that you have. Obviously, if you've got 16,000 staff, it's going to be very different to 16. But you should still have someone that's actually asking these questions and actually working with the existing staff as to where they're going in their career. And again, some of those managers might be reluctant to let that talent go. So you need to educate them on a bigger picture. Because if they don't want to let them go and they hold them back in their career or hold them onto a role because they're really important to that role, they're probably going to leave anyway. So you might as well move them within the company to give them the opportunity to grow with you as an organization rather than going to one of your competitors. And again, think about the different types of internal mobility. So you could create new roles, you could do job rotations, you could do more mentoring, you could do shadowing, or you could do cross-training employees to do something else. Again, there are certain AI tools out there that can help you with that, but cross-training someone to actually do something else when they've got a really good background sometimes makes that person a much better employee. So different things to consider, really. And again, consider that mobility vertically as well as laterally. They don't have to follow the career path they're on. They could actually move more into management. They might actually move into a different style of doing the role that they're doing now. This particularly is relevant to clinical research, where they can actually go on and move different things. They might even start doing more of a regulatory role. They might move and do something more international. So think about different things that someone can actually do where they're still making a big contribution to the organisation. And again, think about that at any point in the employee's journey. So what some people and some organizations do is they make the mistake of giving someone the opportunity to do something. They move them into a new role. Then they leave them there without constantly considering them, talking to them about how they're finding that. They might go into a new role and it might not be the right thing for them. And then they're too embarrassed to say anything about it and end up leaving, rather than turning around and saying, look, this isn't quite right for me. Can I go back to doing what I was doing before? So it's all about HR managing that journey with them. And again, keep conversations going about those internal opportunities and keep that ongoing. And again, you can use the technology to support this. So when looking at technology, think about creating an internal job board, talk about all the different ideas and different vacancies that are potentially there, and ask people to come forward if they're interested. They may not get that role, they might not be right for that role, but at least they were consulted and they feel like they're still part of the business. You can also use the AI, which is what our system does as well as Johnson & Johnson's, to look at and visualize where someone can go. So I think I mentioned before that what we do sometimes is we look at candidates from a personality background, not so much a scientific background, and we see if they're more commercially orientated, if they are purely scientific, or if they could be used in other types of roles, management especially. So start to think about other things that people could be doing or other career paths that might be relevant to them. Communicate those policies and make sure that everyone's aware of them. Again, I've said there's been a number of issues with this where policies are not clear, they're not easy to find. Agree what you're going to be doing at a management level, put that information together for the management team and make sure that all employees are aware of it at the same time. And keep them consistent across all levels within the organization. Walk the walk if you're going to talk the talk, which means that everybody from senior management down to new employees should actually have the same opportunities and should be doing the same things. And then when we're looking at autonomy, and again, this is starting to become probably one of the biggest ones, don't adopt the one size fits all approach to training. Everyone shouldn't have to do the same training. There's going to be some basic training, but every individual is an individual. They might want to do something different and give the employees the freedom to actually decide on that. Look at what training opportunities there are and pick the ones that they want to do, because they might want to move their career into a different direction that might actually suit you. And again, measure the knowledge of any of those growing skill sets. Where could they go? What difference has it made? Was it a success? Did it fail? Where did we go wrong? Where did we go right? All those types of things. And feed that back to the management team as well. And again, stay competitive. Although it's cheaper to hire internally because you can give them the training and get them to move on, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be given a really good package to go with that. Be competitive on packages, because guess what? Every single candidate in our industry is approached at least 25 to 50 times a day for a new role. Even on the day they start with you, they'll have at least 10 calls from recruiters or other people where they're saying, great, you're having a great time, and I hope it works out for you. But guess what? If it doesn't, I've got another 5 roles for you right now. We're seeing a growth in that. And stay competitive. Keep track of what's competitive as well. What are people being offered? And that doesn't have to be purely package as far as salary and benefits are concerned. A benefit could be someone wants to work different hours to everybody else. They might be a carer and might need extra time off, or might be supporting family members. So consider those things as well, because they all add up and they all make a difference to employees' well-being, work-life balance, and obviously making them feel like they're part of the organisation. And then finally, measure the success of everything you've done. Track the impact. Think about how it's helped you retain those candidates over a period of time. Have you been successful for internal hires moving forward, and what are the case studies that you can use for other people? And gather employee feedback. Talk to them about what's working, what's not working. A more consultative approach really makes a big difference. It doesn't have to be formal, it can be informal, but it does give people to have a voice within the organisation. Now, this article, there's a link here to it. All of these things we're going to send you after this, including all the data and all the reference points. And guess what? There's a lot of data and a lot of reports, should you want to read them. And that basically concludes where we are, apart from really our conclusion at the moment. Develop your strategy now, because your competition are, and it's working. So make sure that you've got some things in place. It might not be perfect, but start to talk about your teams as to what you can and can't do, and agree it at a management level. Okay. That concludes a very short webinar for us on internal mobility. Any questions, Simon?
Yes, I've got a few that have come in through the forms, and I've just got one that's come in here, which we'll jump onto straight away. There's a mention of non-billable jobs. What do you mean by that?
That's when they're working internally on internal projects rather than externally. So that's mainly down to CROs, where you're working as an internal workforce or internally working on internal projects that are within the actual company environment.
So that's coming out of something like a BD role and moving into administration, or?
No, it's really when you're actually moving your teams around. So some people actually like to go on site working for a big pharma company, etc. Or other people actually like working internal projects, actually working within the organisation. So, big companies like IQVIA, for example, Icon, Syneos, etc., have that all the time.
Excellent, thank you. I think that clears it up. A couple more questions here. The first one is when's a good time to really start looking at all of this?
I think if you're not looking at it now, you're already too late. So today, right now, after this call, start thinking about it. Candidates, if you recruit someone, you train them up, you get them working for you, and only stay for sort of 2.5 years, you've not really got anything out of that employee. I think what you need to do is to actually offer them more, get them working within the organisation, build up loyalty, trust, etc., and support them on where they want to go in their career. That's the key.
Yeah, 2.5 years really isn't a long time when you consider the amount you have to invest in getting that person into the business in the first place, is it?
Exactly, yeah.
I've got another one here. So the thing I'm going to struggle with is selling this internally, as it's quite unconventional. Any tips?
Yeah. I don't really have any tips. I think look at the data that we're going to send you from all the reports, what other people are doing. The data's there. It's telling you what's actually happening. I think with a lot of companies at the moment, talent acquisition has become their #1 priority. But actually, the priority should be retention. Keep the good people you've got, because guess what? They're just going to go to some of your competitors. You're going to lose them. It's going to leave a hole for a period of time. That affects the business. It affects the bottom line. So at the end of the day, as a business, you've got to think about what's more important. Making sure you can get the projects done, or you can do the work that you've brought in, or huge gaps and you're starting to be late and you've got issues around, client retention because of it. So it's a difficult one to sell in. You need to think about it based on your own particular business.
Yeah, I've got another one that's just come in, very similar sort of vein. The employee stabilization team that you talked about. It sounds like those conversations would normally be had between the employer and their direct manager. How does that link together?
Yeah, I mean, it's really been put there by different organisations at different sizes, and there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it, other than some companies are more ahead of the game on internal mobility than others. And it's the same team. It normally comes out of HR. They work for HR. But it's making sure that people do actually start. It's making sure that they start to get involved with the company literally from the second week that they've accepted, by sort of having video calls with their manager, video calls with other members of the team, talking about, we're looking forward to you joining. So all of a sudden they feel invested with the company before they start. And then moving through that process, it doesn't actually stop. Every single week they're talking to someone, things okay, everything's okay from the sort of work-life balance. Is this the sort of job you wanted to do? Because guess what? If they weren't quite right for that, we could actually move them elsewhere. So it is a challenge and it does take time, but it does pay off. So it's all about, how much time and effort can you put into it?
It's very reminiscent of the HR function that you get in sort of SMEs. So
Yeah,
where you've got your HR person who kind of covers everything from the recruitment down
yeah,
to the pensions and stuff. It sounds very much like that, but you can
yeah.
apply this over a huge corporate structure. So your IQVIAs, your icons would have a dedicated team to do this.
Yeah, they certainly do, and they would.
Mm. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Um, Actually, that's very similar to what I've just said here. Do you recommend having a talent development team separate from HR?
I think so, because to be honest with you,
Yeah.
HR have got a lot to do already. They're normally really busy, and I think by having it separate, that separate team has its own goal of
Mm,
actually doing this job. That's their job. They're not doing HR. They're not going to get pulled from pillar to post. Give people the opportunity and the time to do a job properly, rather than sort of split it across different areas. I have seen it done split, but I think it is a challenge,
mm.
because there's always something else that happens that you need to be working on or looking at. That's my
Yeah,
personal view.
that's a good answer, and I'm inclined to agree with you. If you hire someone to specifically do this role, they're going to find things to make that role take their contracted hours.
Yeah,
They're not going to be sat twiddling their thumbs. They're going to be going, "Oh, you know what? I could speak to someone every week instead of every 2 weeks." They're going to
yeah.
find ways to improve it, and it's only going to have a positive effect. Moving on to the next one, the mobility process diagram that you showed earlier in the presentation, is that what you recommend to be best practice?
Yes, I think so, because I know it's working. I'm assuming it's where are we? We did on this way a little bit. This
Yeah,
one.
that's the mobility. Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, so the thing about this diagram in particular is the amount of interaction you have with employees, talking to them about where they are and where they're going. You're not giving them an opportunity to get disgruntled, to get fed up, to be unhappy about where they actually are and
Mm,
their job. Give them a chance to talk. It's all about communication, and that's essentially what this does. It just gives you a list of all the things that you need to start thinking about.
excellent. And I'm actually moving on to the final question now. If anyone else has any more, please do drop them into the chat and I can get them asked. The last question here, is internal mobility relevant to all staff or just people coming into the business moving forward from leaving this conversation, basically?
Absolutely all staff.
Mm,
Um, I've seen just recently a number of people that have come back to me and saying that, we've had to extend this because it destabilizes the rest of the employees if they see all the new people getting all the opportunity, all the chances, and favoritism to a certain extent. Whereas, they've been in the company 5 years, they've worked really hard, they've, given their all for the organization, and yet other people are getting better opportunities than they are.
mm.
Keep it across the board, make it sure it's communicated across the board. Everyone should be in the same position, and that way you'll keep them longer, they'll be more valued, and they'll be
Mm.
great employees working for you. Very, very hard indeed, because everyone knows how important that is.
Yeah, and I mean, when it comes to those long tenure employees, ones who just like to get their head down, get on with it, and be left alone, if they don't want to engage with it, they just simply won't, and it's
No,
not going to cause any harm in asking, right?
no, but everyone deserves the opportunity to be included if they want to be.
Yeah, yeah, fully
And I
agree.
think that's a management training thing, because people do overlook those people that work hard.
Yeah,
They're okay. Johnny's in the corner working away as hard as he normally does, and yet Johnny's probably going to be the first person to leave.
yeah, yeah, you got it. One more question has come in. How does a proactive talent development team sits with a company works council? Is there any data on this topic available?
I haven't actually looked at that, but I'm sure if you submit that question as an email to us, we'll get our marketing team on it and see if there's anything out there around working with those organisations. So we might not have it, but it might be one of those things that just pops up really easily. So happy to put some people on that. If whoever's raised that question, send it in to us and we'll see what we can do to help you with it.
Excellent. So that concludes the questions. If you would like a copy of the slides, if you want to send any questions, if you want to get a copy of the recording, just send us an email, sales@PharmiWeb.com. I've seen a couple come in already, so you will get a copy of this recording at the end. Our next webinar is going to be around personalized development, Vince, and I think you said that's the 27th of October?
26th of October.
26th of October. So you can register for that the same way. It's going to be another good session. But thank you all for coming today. And Vince, any closing remarks?
No, just thanks everyone for coming along. And we're doing this because lots of people ask us this information. It's a lot easier to do it as a webinar so people can see it. It only takes half an hour. And we think short and sweet is actually quite efficient. And we try and always give you a view on what we consider to be best practice or how you can address some of those issues. So hopefully you found it useful. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate
Lots
it.
of thank yous coming up in the chat. Thank you all very much for coming. Really, really appreciate it. Right, I'll end the recording there and hopefully see you again very soon.
Thanks, everyone.